We're going to talk about the seven kings. This is just another glimpse into how the Revelation will be interpreted for you and how much sense it's going to make once the history is understood and the situations. And we will again deal with this in the book of Revelation, but I want to give you another little insight into how the glory of how these prophecies are written. Verse 8 of Revelation 17. And the beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and goeth into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which has wisdom. The seven heads are seven mountains. In Strong's, there's a Greek word that's used there, oros, which means more of a hill lifting itself out of a plain than an actual mountain. And of course, we were going to identify, as history has, antiquity clearly identified Rome, the city of the seven hills. And we'll talk about those hills. Verse 10. And there are seven kings. We're going to find out that word basileus is used there, which means foundations of power. There are seven foundations of power. 5 are fallen. 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7th, and he goes into perdition. Now, I remember Reformations make the heart leap. In true prophetic interpretation, it's going to make the head hurt right up front. That's why I like introducing this one right now, because when we bring it back in the book of Revelation, in the context of what has transpired to this point, it's even going to be much clearer than what I'm going to present to you now. The Apostle John, he's given a great revelation as to the identity of the beast that was and is not and yet is. In the book of Revelation, now this is key, don't worry about following me necessarily on this now, because we will step by step go through the Revelation. This is the third appearance of the 10-horned beast. Historically, it appeared as Rome pagan that we saw in Daniel. Then we saw it transition into Rome papal. And now, thirdly, we're going to have an appearance in our time manifesting itself as Europe that changes, whether it be communist, socialist, anyway, a mentality that will turn and destroy this system. And we will see various, very furious, emphatic prophetic words as to this yet to come in the book of Revelation. Now, John tells us that we must look toward the seven-hilled city to properly recognize the beast. Many even Roman writers all admit that that's Rome is what's being talked about here. This city could only be Rome. In John's time, Rome was called, as it is to this very day, the seven-hilled city. And there will be pictures of coins during the Revelation. The woman sitting on the 7 hills, you'll be able to see these ancient coins. And the historic names of the 7 hills, just for your reference, I hope I don't butcher them, the Palatine, Quernal, Aventine, Calian, Viminal, Esquiline, and the Jacqueline. I'm sorry, you Latin students, I probably messed those up. Those were their historic names. And Rome even had an annual festival called the Septimonium, the Festival of 7 Mountains. We're going to, like I said, see coins of imperial medals and coins of John's day. And Rome is proudly displaying that she is a woman sitting on 7 hills. The unchallenged matron of the world, even is represented in the book of Revelation. David Campbell, again, the man who changed my life in 1981, I dedicated the 70 weeks to, in his work, Signs for Strangers, had this quote. This Babylon of Revelation was still in the future. In John's day, and although it would be located in the seven-hilled city, it was to be different from the pagan empire. In fact, it would be spiritual. Cardinal Bellarmine, remember we talked about him, the Counter-Reformation writer who wrote an enhanced Riberius Fury and declared absolute war on the year day and stuff. He was one of, Brother Campbell here calls him one of Rome's greatest thinkers and controversialists. He declared, quote, John in the Apocalypse calls Rome Babylon. Bellarmine even admitted it. Another great Roman writer, Cardinal Bellarmine, said, quote, Rome is signified by Babylon. It is confessed of all. Bishop Bossuet, another of their thinkers, said, all the fathers taught that the Babylon of the Apocalypse is Rome. Bishop Walmsley, Alcazar, and even other Roman Catholic theologians have all admitted the same when they're dealing with these verses of Scriptures. So in order to answer this perplexity, actually it's a revelation. I mean, when you read it, it makes your eyes want to roll back in your head, but you'll understand why and how and the purpose of the prophecy being written as such here in just a few minutes. But in order to answer this, we must look at the history of Rome. It's not too well known, but she had 7 forms of government. Remember Basileus, Foundations of Power? Before the 8th appeared. Ganes in the approaching end of the age identifies these distinct forms of government. Quote, the Roman power did actually exist under 7 distinct forms of government enumerated by Livy, Tacitus, and historians in general. As such, Rome was ruled by kings, councils, decemvirs, that was the Council of 12, military tribunals, military emperors, which were the Caesars, and then the despotic emperors. And he goes on to say, 7 kings formed the first head. They lasted 220 years. Consuls, tribunes, decemvirs, that's the council of 10 magistrates. It lasted from 451 to 449, but it drew up the law code of 12 tablets. And dictators. They were the next 4 heads. And governed Rome in turn for nearly 500 years. There were 65 Caesars. Emperors followed and ruled the Roman world for 500 years more. Now the man of sin, or the Antichrist, is to be the last and the most important head of the same Roman beast. We must remember that John wrote the Revelation during the time of the Caesars. This is critical, you follow this. Remember that he wrote the Revelation during the time of the Caesars. So the prophecy stated, 5 are fallen. The kings, the consuls, the dictators, the decemvirs, and the military tribunals had all fallen away, or passed away, or had fallen, as the prophecy said. And one is, which was the Caesars. This was the 6th, or the present form that John was writing under, the Caesars. And another is not yet come. These were the emperors, or the 7th form. Now John goes on to reveal in the prophecy that after these first 7 forms of government passed away, another, the 8th, would arise and go into perdition. We know the apostolic connotation of perdition. After the last Roman emperor, and believe me, you'll understand and never forget this date by the end of this seminar, 476 AD, the eighth form of Roman government, the papacy, ascended into power, or the little horn. Who can dare deny that it was of the seven? Before it, does the Pope to this very day claim the title Pontifex Maximus, which was held by all the Roman emperors? This is the revelation of Jesus Christ. These prophecies, with the context of history, are made to be easily understood. It's no mystery, it's a revelation. In the revelation, I will deal with this again because this is vital. This is a critical prophecy. And for centuries, Protestants believed just what I presented to you. Can you begin to understand what's happening now with the 70 weeks? You get people to believe that the final week or the 7 years of Daniel's prophecy is still yet to occur, and that the seals, trumpets, and the vials of the book of Revelation are all restricted to the time frame at the end of time, Ribera's final week, instead of progressively unfolding during the age of our new covenant church time, then you have destroyed the greatest witness against the apostate church and the Word of God. I read clearly that in the Revelation, John was told, seal not the things of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. And so what we're going to do next now, since we're again getting to dabble into the Revelation and understand more about the partition and Rome and the subdivisions and the little horn, and that's why this stuff is not just flippantly learned in 1 or 2, 3 prophecy books. You're beginning to see what is required and the study that is required to show yourself approved unto God and deal with these issues. So what we're going to do is tie these two great prophecies together with the teachings of the Apostle Paul in his second letter to the Thessalonians. And so by that, we're going to further expose the fabrications of these futurists / dispensationalists yet to be defined.